In this video, we're going to talk about using our special concatenation code to set up clauses for SQL statements. The first thing you want to do is use a text editor to design your SQL statement. You can use any type of text editor you're comfortable with. I'm going to use Notepad++, which is also a Microsoft product. This will be useful in later videos when we create entire SQL statements and send them out to Notepad++. It is imperative to check your SQL statement in your system before beginning the design process. You want to make sure that it runs and returns the information that you are seeking. You want to make sure that everything you are creating in your macro matches a valid statement. We're going to recreate this where clause. In the Excel sheet, we are going to use these customer numbers to create a comma-separated list and put each item in single quotes. And then finally, we will add the SQL clause. In the VBA, we will create a public sub and call it SQL where statement 1. We will need our last row and last column variables. We will use a for loop, so we will need a variable for the loop. We will use the column number from the active cell, so we will need a variable for the column number. And we will need a variable for the final string. We'll copy over our concat call last row and last column code from our previous macros. The first thing we want to do is create a list of items with single quotes and separate them by commas, as we've done in the previous concatenation macros. We will start our for loop beginning with the second row, skipping the header. Inside the for loop, we will bring in the values, trim them, surround them with single quotes, and add a comma at the end. Once we have the desired string, we will trim the extra comma and space. Next, we need to add the prefix of the where clause. Add the SQL list we created, and then we will end the clause with a closing parenthesis. And finally, we will have Excel place our clause in the cell after the last column of data. Hit reset, save, run. And there is our where clause. Let's double check this, copy it over to the Notepad++, and we see that it matches. For the next where clause, we want to take this list of customer IDs and order dates and return the data from the orders table. We only want the orders from the customers on these dates. We want to recreate this where clause, which lists out each customer ID and order date in pairs, surrounded by parentheses, and the pairs are joined with an OR. In our mock example, the customer ID is our customer ID field, and the order date is our order date field. We will copy over our first SQL statement and change the number to 2. We will need to add another variable for the second column, and then calculate that column to be the right of the second column. I see a mistake that I made in the previous macro. I left out the string initialization. We will add that to this macro. And then we need to copy it over to the first one. And as you can see, it will run without initializing the string, but it's a good practice to do this. In the for loop, we will change the list. We want the customer ID prefix, and we will add that to the trim value in the first column. And we will add the prefix to the order date, being sure to keep the space in front of the and after the equal sign. Then the trim date value, and finally the closing parentheses and the OR with the space. Once we have created our list, we will trim off the last 4 characters, which will be a space, the word OR, and a final space. The prefix to the entire clause is simply where. And double checking the string concatenation code, I see I left out an opening parentheses as well as a single quote. So let's add those now. We hit reset, save, run. So let's copy our string over to the Notepad++, do a comparison. And this looks good. In some databases, the date is stored in date parts, months, day, year. Excel has many functions for dates, including extracting the date parts from a date. So going back to our SQL statement, we will make a model statement with customer ID as the customer field, the ordered month as the ordered month field, the ordered day as the ordered day field, the ordered year as the ordered year field. We will copy over our second SQL statement macro. In our string, we will take out the ordered date information, and then we will add the ordered month prefix, complete with a space, and we will put our date value inside the month function. Then we will do the same for the day, and the year. We'll hit reset, save, run. Let's copy over our statement to Notepad++. We are missing a space here. So let's go ahead and add that in, because if we don't, our SQL statement would not run. And that is why you always want to make sure you start with a valid statement. And we can see we've got the exact same where statement. In the next video, we're going to look at a couple variations of this type of macro.